My father worked with ambulance service in Brooklyn and also volunteered for one. So to me, it was like my dad can bring me to work with him, serve the community, and still be a part of the community. That kind of just sparked something in me. From there, I was just like, I have to do this. I'm going to be an EMT when I grow up. It's important to have a presence, especially as a Black male nurse practitioner, because not only am I from these communities, they trust me. I have access, I have resources, I have knowledge, and I know exactly how to present that to them to make them feel that I'm not trying to push an agenda, that I genuinely care. And I feel like as a Black male provider, I have that presence and I have that power to fulfill those needs.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the You Belong in Here podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the intersection of nursing and racism, racial disparities that African Americans face in healthcare, as well as the inequities that African American nurses, doctors, and nurse practitioners face in the workplace. My name is Dr. Tiffany C. Brown, and I am your host. I am a doctoral level nurse practitioner with more than 23 years of practice in the nursing profession. It is my hope that through hearing the personal stories of triumph and resiliency shared through in-depth interviews from nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, and DEI experts, you will be empowered in your workplace and know that you belong in here. Now, let's get to our show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of You Belong in Here. I am Dr. Tiffany C. Brown, your host, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest for today's episode entitled Beyond the Scrubs, the Influence of Black Male Nurse Practitioners in Healthcare. I'm speaking today with my good friend, Jose Perpignan Jr. Jose has been a registered nurse for over 9 years, specializing in critical care and intensive care. Recently completed a Master's of Science in Nursing program and is a board-pending family nurse practitioner. Lastly, he is currently pursuing his doctorate in nursing practice. He is co-founder of the Greater New York Black Nurses Association and co-chair of Men's Health for National Black Nurses Association. He is passionate and committed to healthcare equity and has been quoted saying, "My nursing journey is deeply rooted in my father's EMT service, igniting my dedication to addressing healthcare disparities in underserved communities and establishing a primary care clinic in high poverty areas, providing access, high quality healthcare, and with a patient first approach." So, hey, Jose, how are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm well. And yourself? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm thankful. Thank you so much for joining me today to discuss this important topic. So I am about ready to get into it. How about yourself? You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So first, as most people know, after having listened for a while, I like to start with a few statistics. On a previous podcast, I shared that a study from the American Nurses Association highlights that the percentage of all men in the nursing workforce was about 13%. The number of Black men out of this 13% is thought to be so small that I still cannot find a statistic to capture this number. Now, when we move into statistics of Black male nurse practitioners and doctoral level nurses, the data is also limited. So from what I can conclude from the percentage of nurses in these categories, it's been historically lower than their counterparts. So, Jose, tell us about your journey to becoming a nurse practitioner and what motivated you to pursue this path.
As you mentioned briefly about my dad's influence as a emergency medical technician, at a young age, my dad, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. So my father worked with a ambulance service in Brooklyn and also volunteered for one in a Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn. And throughout the summers, typically every summer, we'd go with my dad down to the base. He'd spend a few hours a day, a few days a week. And there were certain times throughout the summer where they allow EMT volunteers to come and bring their children. So they used to have a lot of block parties. That's what we call them, block parties, where they cut off the streets. They have a lot of vendors and rides and fun things for kids to do in the community safely.
Yeah.
And what they did, they would set up their ambulance truck and they would have a bunch of resources. So they were doing what we know now as healthcare screenings for the elderly population in the neighborhood. So blood pressure screenings, providing resources, educating. And it didn't just seem like they were there because they had a task, like, oh, this is some volunteer community service that I need to put down on paper. It
Uh,
was genuinely, I can see and feel that, wow, I felt like I'm a part of a big family, like a
mm,
community. So to me, it was like my dad can bring me to work with him, serve the community, and still be a part of the community. So to me, that kind of just sparked something in me. From there, I was just like, I have to do this. I'm going to
yes.
be an EMT when I grow up, you know. That's how it
Yeah.
started.
Mhm, mhm. So your father gave you
Yeah.
that presence.
Yeah.
That's extremely necessary, and I'm so thankful that you had that experience growing up and were able to see it. So, how do you believe the presence of Black male nurse practitioners will influence patient care and patient perceptions in healthcare settings?
Well, for one, I like to think back to a lot of community work that I've done, and this is involves me going to various schools throughout the New York City public school system. Um, whether I have a friend, a family member, or anyone that is in one of these schools that have a need for some sort of mentorship.
Hmm.
So me being able to go into these schools and similar communities in which I grew up in, underserved, Black and brown, not a
Yes,
huge male, positive figure, male presence.
yes.
And for me, it was to go and be able to connect with those that are from where I'm from, who look like me, who talk like me. So that I always have to start with that because it made me realize that even in today's time, I've been doing work like that since 2016, probably even
Okay.
before that.
Hmm.
And I'd still have questions from students in these elementary, junior high schools. Oh, I didn't know a male could be a nurse. And to me, with social media, with access to internet, not like how it was before, but now it's like it's at your fingertips. For 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 students to even still have to think that, to me, it was like, whoa, is it that they just don't know the breakdown and dynamics of
Hmm.
medicine, or there's just that much of lack of an exposure for Black male providers in the profession? If they're thinking this and knowing this at this age, in this time frame, in this time that we're in, there's a huge issue there. Fast forward a little, the pandemic. I worked ICU, critical care throughout the entire pandemic, in and out of different hospitals throughout New York City.
Yeah.
And within the inner city, I had more of a connection to the Black and brown population.
Hmm.
They were coming into the hospital independently, alone, scared, no access to their family, no access to their friends, and vice versa, the same with their families and friends. So to me, I was kind of just like the middleman, the liaison,
Hmm.
but also I had to play friend, I had to play family member, I had to play nurse. And
Mm,
for just seeing the lack of like trust and the lack of trust that they had in the medical teams and the systems there, it made me realize that the comfort that they had in that stressful situation was me. I looked
mm,
like. So to
yes,
me, again, to bring it back to familiarity of someone that looks like me. So to me, it's important and to have a presence, especially as a Black male nurse practitioner, because not only am I from these communities, they trust me. I have access, I have resources, I have knowledge, and I know
yes.
exactly how to present that to them to make them feel that I'm not trying to push an agenda, that I genuinely care. And I feel like as a Black male provider, I have that presence and I have that power to fulfill those needs.
You do. Like there are numerous, studies and research done that people who have providers that look like them have better health outcomes. So I like what you're saying because your presence does matter and it is important, especially for our African American community. So tell me, what unique challenges have you encountered as a Black male nurse in the field and what you anticipate maybe encountering as a Black male nurse practitioner when you do begin? And how, as a nurse, have you felt like you've been able to navigate those hurdles?
I think I may have struggled a tiny bit with the idea of being a male nurse. I don't
Okay.
know if it's because it's just societal, outlook, or
Hmm.
just, minor things like that. Once I grew into my role and I really understood and seen the importance of what I can contribute, I just fell in love with it.
Mm.
Things that I'd say were unique for me was me being a man. So automatically, I'm working on a unit more than likely filled with women. And
Hmm.
when you think of gender roles, I think we can dive in and out of, gender roles and double standards, depending on the situation. So I'd always be like, oh, we have a male on the unit. So, if he needs some lifting or if we need some manpower, we have Josie here. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And
Mhm.
I felt no ways about it because as a man in general, I always want to step up and help where I can and use my strengths as needed. Um, I'd say also in the setting of being a nurse for me, dealing with families that may not really have respect for nurses.
Mhm.
So now I'm a male nurse for one, and some people, for some odd reason, just seem to have something with that.
Mhm.
And I'm a nurse. So where's my doctor? So
Yes.
sometimes the challenges of me building a bond and relationship and also not taking offense to those types of approaches, but
Mhm.
also having an opportunity to educate. Like, look, maybe you don't understand fully what my role is and what I'm capable of doing. And transitioning into nurse practitioner role, being able to I feel more like I have more access and power to do more for my people. So what that would look like for me, I want a private practice that
Oh,
caters
awesome.
to,
Mhm. Mhm.
Black and brown communities. My visits may not have to be in the office
Mhm.
setting. Maybe I want to meet you, just like some of my mentors will meet you at what's comfortable for you in your home, in your setting. I'm building with
Mhm.
you and your family. So just knowing that I have that flexibility, that's something that I'm looking forward to in the sense of becoming a nurse practitioner.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too. I can totally tell your sense of community, is huge. As a Black male nurse, what stereotypes do you think persist about Black male nurses and nurse practitioners, and how do you work around those challenges and these misconceptions?
I think with Black male nurses, I feel like I can't say that I had any negative experiences that would
Mhm.
make me turn away from the field.
Mhm.
I think the typical assuming where I'm from,
Right.
maybe how I dress, how I talk, and associating me with patients that may resemble myself. And,
Mhm.
sometimes you come across ignorant people who would make comments, oh, Jay-Z, like like it might not be intentionally disrespectful, but it's just like, wow, why would you assume that I know
No, Jay.
Jay-Z? It's because,
Uh-huh.
because I'm black or, you know, it's little things like that. I feel on the flip side, the intimidation factor. So I'm a black male. I can be in the room. I've never had those issues with my patients, but
Mhm.
I've been around certain hospital settings where I've been around individuals that you could sense like there's a little uncomfortability. Like maybe they've never been in the presence of a black male
Right.
for such a long period of time in the same setting. And sometimes you could tell when people are uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's like patients
Mhm.
could tell when something's not right. You can
Yeah.
tell and sense those things. So I think just the idea of people maybe having a misconception of who I am before
Mhm.
obviously getting to know me, I've
Mhm.
I've experienced a lot of that in the field. And if you want to go into the racism of it, just I have to, even in the school that I attend now, it's a PWI, predominantly white.
Mhm.
So I'm the only male. I'm the only black male. And if there are any other students of color, one or two, but I'm
Yeah.
the only black male. So now I feel like there's always some sort of target on my back where I have to dress a certain way. I have to present a certain way. I have to talk a certain way. I have to hand my assignments in a certain way. And I can't miss a beat. I can't miss a step because once I miss a step, I miss a beat. I feel like there's a target on my back. I don't have the luxury like, maybe some of my other counterparts who can come to class dressed how they want, can talk
Yeah.
how they want. I can't do those things. So to me, it's
Mhm.
like getting ready for class is one thing. Now I have to get ready for class mentally and, physically. So I think that was something that really stood out.
That sounds like a heavy weight. And I can say I can relate to that as well. It's almost this we have to go a step above because of our race, and we have to recognize that people do have these biases. I mean, everything that you're describing is a bias, like you make this assumption, because you're New York, you have an accent, that you know Jay-Z, or that you're going to dress a certain way. You shouldn't go to your clinicals with scrubs, or your clinic or your class with some scrubs and some Timberland boots or something like that. So it's it's like these biases that are tough to kind of get through and manage, and it is a weight on African American student, which kind of lends to my next question I want to ask you about mentorship. Do you have a mentor, or how important would you say mentorship has been in your career overall and as your development?
That is a great segue. When you speak about the biases, a part of the biases is, acknowledging and knowing that they exist.
Yes.
But another part is really self-reflecting and figuring out what it is that affects you and why.
Yes.
So for me, I want to dress how I feel comfortable. I want to talk how I feel comfortable. And I feel like that's a gift and a positive trait and characteristic that I can bring to the table to be able to connect with whoever it is that I'm dealing with, patients, coworkers, the community.
Yeah.
So the importance of mentorship is that I was going to stop at my master's. I was going to get my master's, and then I'm done with school. And thankful for MBNA, National Black Nurses Association. I have a ton of mentors. I have a mentor for every different aspect in nursing you could think of, personal life. So one of my mentors who I'm very, very close with, who's also a co-founder of Greater New York City, Black Nurses, Dr. Johnson. I had a conversation with him one time, and he's been there since I was an undergrad. Okay. So he's been watching me even before I was even really considering going into nursing. And he's just been there every step of the way. And one day I had a conversation with him, and we were at a conference, and I was just like, I don't know what to wear. Like, I know we don't need to put on a suit tonight or today, but this is all I have. And I don't feel comfortable. Like, maybe this is not the setting for me. And he told me, he's like, bro, just be you.
Yeah.
Like, you're educated young Black male. You continuously elevate in your field. You do a lot of community work. You're a loving and caring person. You're a good, genuine person, and you love what you do. And it's up from here. Be you. Let them know who Josie truly is. You don't have to try to hide behind something or feel like you can't expose certain things. And after that conversation, I felt like my personal, my career, everything just took a turn, because now I'm not worrying about the aesthetics and the appearance. And, I'm always professional with how I conduct myself, but just not having that worry in the back of my mind really allowed me to free myself a lot and make connection. Like, I met you through conferences, I was open enough to be vulnerable enough and just say, I'm me, and this is what I have to bring to the table. And I'm going to genuinely and authentically be me. And I feel like that's just the importance of mentorship. That alone allowed me to come out of a mindset, and maybe like a trapped mindset that I was in, that may have been holding me back. And now I'm free, and I feel free. So now when I go into rooms, people can see my genuine, authentic self, and they just have to accept it. This is what it is, I have a lot more to bring to the table. So that, and just having mentors that have experienced things, like Dr. Fields. You talk to Dr. Fields, who's our national president. Yeah. And if you listen to his journey from the beginning, and then you look how many years have gone by, you'd say he paved the road for individuals like us to be able to be in these spaces and to be heard and to be felt and innovative and really make change. So I think that different mentors play different roles in my life. And I think, and I tell people all the time, you have to have mentors. It's probably the best. It could be intimidating, but once you break the ice and really see what mentorship is, it really is life-changing.
It sounds like, both at the conference and then other people, did they come up to you and recognize you, or did you approach them? And did you necessarily ask for mentorship, or was it something that just kind of happened and evolved because of the atmosphere you were in?
I say a little bit of both. For the most part, when you're collaborating with like-minded folks who have the same agenda to serve, you end up being in positions where you end up collaborating on a project or an assignment or some sort of task. And you end up building a bond with this person, and you get to conversate, and you're like, wow, you've done all of that. And you just, sometimes I might say, oh, you know, you're my new mentor, right? Or sometimes it just happens, and you don't even need to say it. You know, you just end up speaking to them a lot more, reaching out to them for their advice and their opinions on things, whether it's even references.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might push you into positions that you might not feel comfortable being in. I'm interviewing today, actually, after I interviewed with a university to become like an adjunct clinical professor, which is something that I've always been intimidated with, even though and a lot of my mentors say, you'll be great. But to me, it's like, that's new to me. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm still going to do it.
Yes.
But I'm able to have conversations now with these individuals in these spaces, and they can educate me things that I may be ignorant to. They say, this is how it really is, Josie. This is what you're missing. This is the exposure that this is what you can do. This is how the community can benefit. This is how the future of nursing can benefit. And this is what you've been doing already. So we're a perfect fit. I'm like, wow, that's like what mentorship looks like. You can see something in me I can't see in myself.
You know? That's big. You said a couple of things that I kind of want to highlight before I move on. I think that it's important to have mentorship and sponsorship. You know, so you can have a mentor, but then sometimes, you know, or it depends on who you decide you approach to say, hey, you know, you're my mentor now. Maybe that person may be in an area that you want to work in. You know, you want to, you know, become something that you want to do. Like if my aim is to become a director, then it'll be nice to know a director or of another institution that knows people too, and they can help sponsor you in that way. And, you know, I also like, Josie, how you're utilizing what you've learned from the mentors to take it to the next level, and also not only just mentor others, but become a clinical instructor, like an adjunct clinical instructor. We'll have to talk a little bit more offline about that, because I did that as well. So we'll have to share some experiences. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
So how do you engage with the African American community to promote health awareness? I know earlier we talked about, you know, community. So what does that going to look like for you continuing in the FNP and following the DNP as far as healthcare awareness and education?
I think about that all the time. I think about how I interact with family and friends now, because they do seek, you know, medical, I wouldn't say advice fully, but opinion as a family friend, and, you know, family and or friend.
Yeah.
So I think that now, because I've been so vocal and I've been so present, and I've really put myself out there with what I do, what I love to do, how I do it, when I do it, where I do it, that a lot of people around me, especially in my community, they have access to me. They have access. Wow, we actually have somebody that we raised technically or watched grow up, come into this provider, this man, this person that we look to see more of in our community. So my interactions with them are typically, you know, they're happy for me. You know, it's loving. Oh my God, I used to watch you run around like a little kid here, and now you're a grown man. But then seeing them turn to me also like, maybe I was younger, so I needed their guidance, needed them to navigate through life as I figured things out. But now they see I have a special gift and a talent that I have that they can utilize. So my thing is, if I have it, you have it. Whether it's information, whether it's resources, if I don't have it and you need it, I'm going to find it for you. So having that approach and always asking, I'm very personable. You know, if we ride up in the elevator from 1 to 33, we're going to know a lot about each other by the time we get to the 33rd floor. So I think me and my presence and me being okay with putting myself out there and checking in on people, because I don't have to look at you and say, oh, you're overweight, you're eating too much. I could just say, you know, how you been? How's everything? Everything good? My friend, one of my good friends who lives in California, we grew up together. He's a day one friend. And he'll call and check in. How you doing mentally? How you doing physically? How you doing financially? How you doing emotionally?
I love
And
it.
he'll check in like that with me. And I thought that was kind of dope, because I'm like, those are probably all of the important aspects of somebody's life, but no one really is going to really break that down to talk about it, especially as Black men, because you just, I'm strong.
Yeah, yeah.
I adopted that with my loved ones and my friends and people. I sit down. I make time. You have to make people feel like
They're
you're not
important.
just in a rush, walk by conversation. Like I'll sit down next to you, like, oh, talk to me. What's going on? I'll tell you
Yeah.
what's up. Like, and I feel like that allowed for them to trust me more and know. So when they have a question, they could call me, they can text me, they can reach out to my mother, my grandmother. And I'm always like, you don't have to pay, you don't have to get on a wait list. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a question, hit me up, talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So how I want my relationships to be with my patients, especially in these communities, I want it to be the same. I want it to be family oriented. That's why I shifted from critical care to family practice.
Mm-hmm.
Most like, oh, why don't you go to CRNA school or acute? I said, I think my calling is in the community. I want to have access to my community.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can work, like I mentioned before, and provide services at your home, I'm in your home, you're comfortable. So not only am I dealing with you, you might have grandson there, you might have son there, nephew, mom,
Mm-hmm.
aunt, cousin. Now I have access to all of these different people. Grandson might need mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm dealing with you, I'm still talking to him, seeing where he's at, seeing how, and I'm also talking to you and saying, if there's anyone in your family you want me to talk to or give them my advice, if someone's interested in being a nurse or coming into the field, like you can always give them my information.
Mm-hmm.
So for me is being able to connect and feel and build like a loving, trusting family. Like you have when you were growing up, you had your pediatrician from when you were born until you were like 18. And you just,
Mm-hmm.
that's not, so they retire and you're like, who am I going to go to now? I got to
Right.
find a new doctor. So I want that feel, knowing like that's my family. It's not just my provider, it's my family. And
That's
that's what,
beautiful. That's
hmm
beautiful. I was going to ask you a question about how we can encourage other African American teenagers or college students to enter the nursing profession. You did mention, by way of referral, hey, if you know someone who's interested in nursing, send them to me or talk to me. But what can we do, particularly in the Black community, to encourage our race, our people to decide to go down this path, specifically African American men?
I say most importantly is we have to meet people where they are instead of utilizing like when you have conversation, if you don't go to school or if you don't take care of yourself, you get sick, or you in the streets, you can turn to gangs, or instead of using a negative outcome of
Right.
situations, kind of like flip it to like risk reward.
Hmm.
So I think just being present. So meeting these males where they are.
Yeah.
Where are these males typically? And what's the best time frame to really get to them where it's not too late
Hmm.
and they still have enough time to still grow into becoming a provider that we know that we can become. If I had that mentorship coming out of high school, I would have been a nurse by 21 instead of
Mm-hmm.
26 because I had the obstacles and trials,
Right.
but it made me who I am. But I think meeting these students, going to the schools, I think like what our chapter is doing now with a emergency medicine high school in New York City. In
Hmm.
our chapter, they have a nurse lead program, leaders in equity and diversity. And we basically, it's mentorship, education, and we're providing situations for these students, it's a group of students to learn and understand nursing.
Hmm.
So we have all of the materials you need for nursing, stethoscope, blood
Yes.
pressure cuffs, oximetry, and we're educating on what these things are, what they do, and why you use them. And then we put them in simulation scenarios so that way they have to act out what they already know in these simulations with the guidance of us in the background. Not only that, being mentors to them and also exposing them to community work. So we have students coming with us to Capitol on the Hill, MBNA on the Hill. They're going to see what it's like for us to go into these spaces to advocate for our communities, what that entails, and exposing them to this. I think
Yeah.
it starts as early as going into, even as early as junior high school. But if
Hmm.
more high schools could come up with these programs, I know Mercy University is trying to do it in Westchester County. So to have the access to these students, now they're seeing us, now we're working with them as they're growing. So if they're interested, not only are you going to have a way in to nursing, you have a whole network of
Yes.
nurses. Access is through the roof. You know what I'm saying? Not only that, now we're uplifting you, building you, and showing you the path. We can give you a blueprint on this is what you need to do step by step,
Right.
and you'll be successful. And you have mentorship, you have access, and you have resources. So I think meeting them in their communities, in their schools, and really pouring into them and showing them like, look, yeah, I don't get paid to do this, but the payment for me is seeing you be successful and you
Absolutely.
lifting as you climb, lifting the next person behind you, seeing someone that you know needs some mentorship or needs positive male figure presence, and
Yes,
identifying that, and you have obligation to approach that. No matter what the outcome is, you at least have to attempt to give someone the opportunity that you got, you
I
know?
love it. I love it. I love it. Now I kind of want to segue. You said a lot of wise things, but before we conclude the show, what is one word or some words of wisdom that you want to empower someone else with who may be listening? Who you've said a lot already, but what do you want to leave people with today? What word of wisdom would you give them?
I say self-reflection. I think I always like to say you like Nipsey Hussle said, you sitting with yourself when them doors close. What does that mean? What happens to you throughout your life? What happens to you in a day? You're affected by a lot of external forces, right? Every encounter you have with people, every encounter you have just in general, it is going to affect you or, build you up somehow. When you look in the mirror, when we go into these programs, we go into these care settings, and we think about cultural competency and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I always say, how could you really understand how to be culturally competent or sensitive or aware to someone else's culture if you're not even fully aware of yourself and your
Mm-hmm.
own, you know? So I say self-reflection, really look in the mirror to see who you are, why you feel you're that person, where you are, what gotten you to where you are, whether it's positive, negative, and embrace those things. Life is a roller coaster. The emotions are going to be up and down. It's not going to always be pretty or feel good.
Sure.
You have to embrace those moments, embrace those feelings, sit with them, like really internalize them and figure out what it is that's happening and why and how it can affect you and how it will affect you and how you're going to use it. Because you
Mm-hmm.
could play victim or you could use that pain and say, you know what? I'm going to open up a book or I'm going to apply for a scholarship or a program. I'm going to use this as motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding who you are. And once you understand who you are, it'll be so much more easier for you to understand the people that you want to care for.
I love it. That's beautiful and very insightful. Well, folks, we have finished another episode of You Belong in Here. Thank you so much, Josie, for being such an amazing guest and sharing your nursing journey and to not only just to become a nurse practitioner, and also as you head into the D or completing the DNP program, but also just giving us some insight about mentorship, and community, all these pearls of wisdom. I hope our listeners are really taken in. I am cheering you on, of course, as you continue in pursuit of your doctorate. Pretty soon you'll be Dr. Josie. Okay, I definitely know that path, and it's not easy. So, thank you all your listeners for tuning in. We hope again that this show reminds you of your presence, that your presence is necessary, that you truly belong in your workplace, you truly belong in school. And as usual, if you found this episode encouraging, motivating, inspiring, and empowering, uplifting, please like it and share it with others. You can find my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then also my website, belonginherepod.com, where you can find more information about our guests and some notes and some statistics. So tune in to our next episode in 2 weeks, where we continue to explore topics in equity in healthcare and equity in the workplace. And until then, keep pushing. Take care.